Forever. This week's revision is on An Inspector Calls by Priestley. Let's see how we get on. So, what can we remember about character? On the left we have their characters' surnames, and on the right we have their first names. And the idea is to match the character's surname with their first name. For example, Mr. Burling Senior, at the top here, his first name is Arthur. So I'll just give you a few moments to see if you can have a recap on character. So, we're looking at Mr. Burling's predictions now here, and what we need to do is have a read through them. So we've got the Germans don't want war, we've got by 1940 there will be no war and no strikes, we've got George Bernard Shaw and H.G. Wells, rubbish. These were Mr. Burling's predictions. What we need to do is we need to find out which ones he actually said and find the ones which are totally and utterly made up and are garbage. Okay, in that he didn't say them. So I will just give you a few moments to have a read through those and to highlight the ones that you think were Mr. Burling's predictions. So just a quick fire question here. When was the play written and when was it set? Is it A, B or C? So here we're looking at when was World War I and when was World War II. So a little bit of context. So just after the play was set in 1912, so we're looking at when was World War I, and then we're looking at when the play was actually formed. So around the end of World War II. So the predictions then that Mr. Burling makes, let's see why we think they are wrong. So we're going to have a look at the predictions that he makes, and then we're going to have a look later on down the line at what actually happened as to whether or not they are right or they are wrong. So if we have a look at the second one down, so the Titanic is unsinkable. So that, we all know, it's a prediction that Mr. Burling does make. Well, we know later on down the line that actually that is technically not true, because unfortunately we do know that the Titanic did sink as it hit an iceberg. And so therefore Mr. Burling's prediction there was not entirely truthful. So have a look at the others, see how you get on and see whether or not you can match them up with the reasons why they are wrong. Looking at character here and which stage directions describe which character. So we need to have a little read through them and then decide which of the characters from the play the stage directions are actually describing. So if we have a look at this first one here, it says heavy looking, fairly easy manners, rather provincial in his speech. Well, I'm hoping that you're thinking, oh yes, I know this one, this is Arthur Birling. Now the other ones obviously are going to be maybe different characters, and you need to decide which of the characters the stage directions are describing. So I'll just give you a few moments there just to have a go at that task. So we have a list of the characters here. We've got Sheila, Sybil, Gerald, Arthur and Eric. And the idea here is to have a think about how each character contributed to Eva's death. Can you remember how they are involved and the consequences of their actions result in Eva's passing? So I'll just give you a few moments to have a think about that and how each of them were involved in her death. So, bearing in mind we've had a little think on the previous slide about how the characters were involved in Eva's death, now can remember the order in which those things happened. So we've got either A, B or C, just to try and think about which character was involved and in what order. So I'll give you a few moments just to see if you can remember what the characters and who was first and who was second, third, fourth and fifth and so on. So just a quick one here. Can anybody remember the other name that Eva Smith was known by, and who knew her by this name? So which of the characters knew her by her other name? And who said that? Some memorable quotes. So we have the quotes down the right hand side, and down the left hand side we have a list of the characters. So who said these quotes? So the idea is to match the character on the left hand side with what you think they said on the right hand side. Just give you a few moments to do that before I move on to the next slide. So a little bit more in-depth revision here, Year 11. So we've to work out who said these quotes, who did they say them to or about, and then put some notes in about what they show about the character who said them. So just give you a few moments to have a look and complete that task before moving on. last slide for revision this week, general revision PowerPoint, is to think about 2 quotes to support these statements listed below. So the first statement is Mr. Berling cares more about money than people. So we need to think of a time perhaps when he's spoken and when he maybe expresses that he does care more about money than people. And there's one about Mrs. Berling, Sheila, Eric Gerald and the inspector. So Year 11, this brings us to the end of the first revision session here on Inspector Calls, just a general overview to get you thinking about character, how they're described and some things that they say.